Patches by Ted Neal. When I was 11, my brother shot my eye out with a pellet gun. I was in 7th grade. That was when my father's drinking was at its worst, so of course, on some level, there was a connection between the two. But things got better after that. At least for Dad. Seeing me like that was rock bottom for him. I know it. And he went to AA the night after it happened, and never touched a drink again. Mitch. Mitch is my brother, the one who shot me. He's always had a temper, and I shouldn't have picked that fight with him that afternoon. I shot him first with a slingshot, and things just escalated. He was sorry, real sorry. Cried with his head in my lap the whole way to the hospital. I remember saying, don't worry, I can still see out of it," even though I couldn't. There was nothing left. My eyeball had burst and spread like clear jelly all over my face, shirt, and hands. Mitch was 2 years older than me, so he went off to high school first. We didn't really hang out after that. Something was just gone from our relationship. He did all right in school, though. On his 16th birthday, Mom and Dad bought him a blue IROC. He was sort of spoiled. It was weird. It's like Mom and Dad felt guilty, felt bad for him, like they were all worried about him maybe being too hard on himself because of what he had done. But the only person Mitch was hard on was me. It was like his way of coping, his own form of denial, really. On some level, I thought he reckoned he was being tough on me to prepare me for a tough world. He picked fights with me all the time, physical fights. He was bigger than me, so he always won. But I never backed down. The more he pushed, the more I pushed back. And the more I pushed back, the more he could convince himself I wasn't broken, traumatized, or handicapped. It's like he wanted to reassure himself that what he had done hadn't really affected me. So it sort of cycled on. I guess if I had done what he had, I would have still been trying to exonerate myself in my head too. Pretty dysfunctional now when I think about it, but at least it did prepare me for the world, or any dumb asshole who ever decided to mess with me, or call me pirate, or say, "Aye, matey." Once I'd beaten down a few, the word was out. Nobody messed with me. Anyway, the blue IROC. Yeah, Mitch wrecked it 6 months after he got it, but Mom and Dad paid for it to be repaired, with a new paint job and everything. Now it was a green IROC. Mitch sold it in college and used the money, plus the money he'd made bartending, and bought an Acura. I didn't get a car on my 16th. I got a job. At that point, Dad had retired from his corporate position in finance. It had been too stressful and had threatened his sobriety. So he and Mom followed through on their dream and opened a little sandwich cafe. It kept the lights on for them, but, well, a car, much less going to a nice college, was out for me. In my spare time, it was up to me to work in the cafe. Not Mitch. Mitch had to finish school. No one wanted him to be held back. After all, he had so much guilt to live with. Poor Mitch. It's all so backwards when you look at it, but maybe it worked out all right for all the wrong reasons. For me, it was community college, then 2 more years of working in the restaurant to save up to transfer to a 4-year program. But I learned how to take care of myself. When I did get a car, I bought a Jeep with my own money and kept it in working order myself. Unlike Mitch, I never wrecked it either. Not bad for a guy driving with one eye. But Mitch stayed competitive. He was always keeping score, asking me how much I made last year, how much I could bench, how many girls I had slept with, how hot they were. Whatever. It all sort of came to a head this last December. We both were home for Christmas. Our older brothers weren't. They all had their own families to attend to. On the 22nd, Mitch and I had gone out on a double date with our girlfriends. I know he wanted to meet Elaine, the girl I'm serious about. I know he wanted to compare her to Cindy, the girl he's not really serious about. That was fine, it didn't bother me. Cindy had to go to Milwaukee where she grew up. She was spending Christmas Day with her family. As per usual, Dad paid for her to reschedule her plane ticket so she could stay an extra day in town to meet him and Mom. He and Mom really wanted to meet her, or at least Mitch made them think they did. Like I said, I think it was all just so Mitch could arrange that double date and compare our girls side by side. Anyway, after dropping Cindy off at the airport, Mitch and I rode back together in his Acura. "Too bad we didn't drive separately," he said. "Then we could race home." "It would be no contest, Mitch," I said. "I drive a Jeep. It's torqued low. It's not a highway vehicle. I'd only have an advantage off-road. This thing couldn't get past the shoulder." I tapped the Acura's plush armrest for effect. "You'd be surprised how well a sedan can do off-road," he said. That's what he actually said. He was stretching, he just couldn't even admit that my Jeep, any Jeep, was better off-road than an Acura. "Yeah, right," I said. Mitch made everything into a competition. He hates going shooting with me. I'm a better shot, and I can always make tighter clusters with whatever we're shooting with, rifles or pistols. He hates it. Not bad when you consider I had to learn how to shoot with my left, non-dominant hand after he shot my right eye out. This Christmas, when we went shopping for Mom and Dad, it was just a challenge of who could get the better gifts. He always tried to outdo me. A school counselor once told me that Mitch was afraid that Mom and Dad wouldn't love him anymore, and so he was striving for their approval. Maybe. But he also had that damn temper. It was the temper that made him shoot me in the first place. It was his temper that caused him to wreck the IROC. But what he didn't realize was that Mom and Dad had always favored him anyway. You know, when I woke up in the hospital after surgery, the first thing I did was started throwing up. Something about trauma to my vagus nerve, the pneumogastric or something. I think they called it my 10th cranial nerve. Whatever. I woke up vomiting and couldn't stop. That was the first thing that happened. The second was that I asked for my mother. She wasn't there. Neither was my father. They were at home, comforting Mitch. Anyway, for Christmas this year, we agreed not to spend more than $200 on our parents' gifts. When we got back to the car after shopping together, we compared receipts, and we had both kept our word. I spent $196.73, and he spent $198.55. Fair was fair. But of course, it didn't stay that way. The night before Christmas Eve, the 23rd, I was up watching Star Trek reruns. I just couldn't sleep. Mitch comes in late with a shopping bag from Britches. "What's that?" I asked. "Nothing." "Bullshit, what is it?" "You don't know?" he said. "No, I don't have X-ray vision." "It's for Dad." "What are you doing buying an extra present for Dad?" "His 15th sobriety birthday is the 30th. He was right. Dad gave us the BB gun and slingshot on Christmas Day. He and Mom went back to work on the 28th, leaving Mitch and me to fend for ourselves. Day 2, my eye was shot out. That was the 29th. Dad was in AA on the 30th. That was also the day Mitch destroyed the gun. He still kept a piece of it hidden somewhere, but he won't show me. I guess that is part of his bag of rocks to carry. But just then, I was mad because Mitch had pretended to keep his word on the Christmas gifts, but was trying to get away with remembering Dad's sobriety birthday without telling me. I should have known he would pull something like that. Just to get him back, I went and ordered Dad a present online that night. I got Mom a little something extra too. It worked out fine because when Christmas morning rolled around, turns out Mitch had ended up getting Mom some extra slippers that he had bought on the sly. He just can't stop. Mom and Dad went out on the night of his sobriety birthday. Mitch didn't want to go, and I didn't want to go alone with them, so we let them make an intimate night of it. Mitch and I went to a movie. On the way back, we stopped at a bar where I had a Tom Collins and he had a Manhattan, since it would have been rude to drink in front of Dad. "This thing tastes like piss," I said after one sip. He tasted it. Don't leave a tip, he said. I could make a better one. Well, I could too. I made a lot of those when I was working as a bartender in college, I said. Yeah, but my Tom Collins are some of the best. People say they can't drink them at other bars after they've had mine because anything else tastes like piss. That was just like him to say something like that. You must piss in them to make them so special, I said. Shut up. I should have left it at that, but everything had just gotten under my skin. Why do you think your Tom Collins are better than mine, Mitch? I mean, I actually worked as a bartender all through college. I didn't say mine were better. You practically did. You're just being oversensitive, Sidney. No, I'm not. You make everything into a competition. Everything. You think you are better at everything. Usually I don't say anything, but dude, I was a bartender. Stay in your lane. Man, what is with you tonight? What is with me? How about this, Mitch? Just say I make a better Tom Collins than you. I had him. He couldn't. He couldn't physically say it. Unbelievable. Instead, he picks up his keys and says, Let's go home, man. We'll mix drinks and then you can tell me if you think your Collins is better than mine. Yep, let's go. That's what I said. We went right to the liquor store and bought all the liquors we would need since Dad hasn't had alcohol in the house for, 15 years. We all got the basics you would have on the rail behind the bar. Bourbon, brandy, whiskey, rum, gin, tequila, vodka, triple sec, sweet and dry vermouth, then a few extras. Creme de menthe, amaretto, creme de cacao, Kahlua, Drambuie. Then we bought some mixers, cranberry juice, lime mix, OJ, Coke, Sprite, seltzer, tonic and stuff, everything you'd have in the soda gun. We didn't realize we had forgotten pourers to top the bottles with. There weren't any at home. Dad had thrown them all away after he dried up. We'd have to eyeball it. No problem, I perform well under adversity, Mitch said about the eyeballing. What's that, Mitch? You perform well under average? Is that what you said? He poured the gin and the sours mix into the plastic canister we were improvising as a mixer while I made my own Tom Collins. He shook his mix, poured it in a glass, then handed it to me. I tasted it. I took a few gulps. It's all right. I can do better. Try mine. Well, if it's not perfect, it's because I have no real pourers, he said before trying mine. He said it was average. Proportions should be the same though, Mitch. Doesn't matter what you pour it with. I had him there and he knew it. I started on my next drink, a margarita. Mitch went to the cupboard and pulled out another plastic container so he could mix at the same time. He was mixing a margarita too. I listened to him count out the pour time. He shook it hard. I shook mine. We exchanged. I drank his, he drank mine. His was good, real good. But he liked mine too. It was a tie. Perfect Manhattan, he said for the next drink. I took the dry and sweet vermouths and the whiskey, that's what makes a perfect Manhattan, dry and sweet vermouths, then handed them to him when I was done. I put in a lemon twist. You didn't rim the glass, he said after I dropped in the lemon peel. I got another lemon wedge, peeled it, then rimmed the glass. We exchanged. Smooth, I said. Dry, he said. Next, we made sex on the beach. Then tequila martinis, French 75s. Mine were far better than his. Rob Roy's, toasted almonds, Sazeracs. I whipped out the cream for the White Russians. Mitch got all excited when I screwed up on the Black Russian and added creme de cacao instead of Kahlua. Then we made Moscow mules to complete the Russian trifecta. We mixed gimlets and sidecars. Then we did the girly drinks, the one girls always order, cosmopolitans, apple martinis, strawberry daiquiris. By this time we were getting pretty drunk from tasting the drinks, but we kept going. Next were prim cups, mint juleps, and mojitos. We knew we shouldn't finish them, so we didn't. Instead, we started moving them to the other side of the counter. When we ran out of room on the counter, we moved them to the kitchen table. Soon, it was like every surface in the kitchen had half-empty drinks on it. We should have a party, I said. You need friends first, Sidney. We probably don't have enough alcohol here for all my friends. Anyone will be your friend for alcohol. Oh yeah, you're real funny. No, I'm serious. You're real funny. I started laughing, not with him, but at him, but spilled some rum. I was trying to make a Long Island iced tea, but I was missing the glass. Depth perception is hard when you are drunk, and have only one eye. We were so drunk we couldn't do all the counts anymore. The counter was getting sticky from all the mixers we'd spilled. It was also bubbly from all the carbonated drinks we'd overpoured. We didn't have bar mats or anything. Mitch was plastered. He knocked over his Long Island iced tea as he was trying to hand it to me. You ready to admit you've lost? I asked. It was clear the contest was over because Mitch couldn't even pour straight. I'm ready to admit I'm not always trying to overcompensate. It was a dig about my eye. I recognized it. I was out for blood after that. Mitch, talk about overcompensation. Mom and Dad gave you all the breaks, but you squandered them. Shut up, Sid. That's not what I was talking about. But that is what I'm talking about. It's always been poor Mitch. We sure hope things aren't too hard for him. Must be hard having blinded his brother. Poor Mitch. Shut up, Sidney. Why? Because I'm right? I said shut up! He flung his hand out, backhand-like, and knocked the LIT right out of my hand. It crashed into all the other drinks we'd set up, collapsing one after another like dominoes. Then he grabbed my shirt by the collar. There it was, the old anger coming back. He was grinding his teeth, hissing and spitting out of his mouth. I know a thing or two about defending myself, though. I guess he'd not counted on that. I did this judo move to twist his forearm free and push him back, but I was still drunk and threw myself off balance. I tried to catch myself, missed the counter I was reaching for, and fell on the floor. Mitch stood over me like he was going to stomp me. I kicked his weight-bearing leg out from under him and he crashed to the floor. That alone spilled a couple more drinks that had not been knocked over already. I tried to get up and recover before Mitch did, but it didn't matter. He was always bigger. He didn't even need to get up. On just one knee, he hefted me up and body slammed me on the floor, then cocked his arm back to punch me. I could see all the tendons in his neck flexing. Punch out my other eye, why don't you, Mitch? Was all I really had time to say, but it was enough. His eyes were all wild, his face red, all his veins sticking out and spittle on his chin, but he didn't throw the punch. Instead, he got up and put his fist through the drywall in 2 places, then kicked the pantry doors until they came off their racks and came crashing down on the kitchen table. I don't think there was a glass left upright. He kicked a bottle on the floor. It exploded against the baseboards and left a splatter of whiskey on the wallpaper. Fuck, 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 he was saying. He collapsed in one of the kitchen chairs. I was still on my back on the floor. His back was to me, his chest rising and falling, but I knew he was coming back to earth. He started talking without looking at me. Don't you see, Sidney? He said. Don't you see? I'm just trying to... But that was all he had. If I was about to get a confession of guilt, a profession of love, or just an apology, I'll never know. He was too drunk, stubborn, hateful, or all those things. He just sniffed like he was sobbing and wiped his face before making a break for the back door. Just like him to run. I wanted to get up to make sure he hadn't taken his car keys, but I found that I couldn't. I didn't hear his car. That was good enough. I looked up at the counter from the floor. All the bottles of mixers, juices, and alcohol in all their different colors, red, yellow, orange, brown, gold, green. They were beautiful, I was thinking. That was exactly what I was still thinking when I heard Dad and Mom pulling into the garage. Shit, I said. Both car doors slammed. Fortunately, Dad came in first, and I heard him say, Honey, let's go next door to the Clays. We'll take them some of that plum cake you have left over. I'll bring it and meet you over there. You go ahead. Dad was all calm-like, not betraying that there was chaos waiting for them in the kitchen. I heard Mom say, "Okay," then her heels receding towards the Clays, our next-door neighbors. I was sorry I couldn't get up. I was sorry Dad had to see all that, it being his sobriety birthday and all. I was cold. I realized Mitch had left the back door open. A breeze was blowing through the house. It was December, after all. Dad went over and closed the back door. I thought he would explode, just fly into a rage, knock all the glasses and bottles off the counter and table, them cascading and shattering on the ground. Maybe he'd scream, "What the hell is this?" In a way, that's what I wanted. That's what I wanted him to say. I wanted someone to finally just say how fucked up it all was, how unfair it all was. But instead he just went over, picked each bottle one by one, and poured what was left in the sink, then set them down gently in the recycling bin. He sort of surveyed the rest, looking down at me. I was not sure how to read his face. He was distant, cold, sad. He just stepped past me, emptied all the glasses and the liquor mixers next. When he was finished, he ran his hand over his head. That was when I noticed his hands were shaking a bit. He ran them under hot water and soaped them up good, likely to get any smell of alcohol off them. He didn't want to. He couldn't afford to smell it later. When he was done drying his hands on a dish towel, he went to the fridge, pulled out Mom's plum cake, stepped over me again. I was at least halfway up at that point, leaning up against the kitchen island. Mitch wasn't back yet. I was watching the brown sunburst of whiskey stain he had left on the wall weeping down into the baseboards. Dad stopped at the door to the garage, turned to me and said, "You know where to find the mop, Sidney. Clean this up before we get back. I don't want your mother to see it." Then, he added, "I don't want to see it." That was all he said. Not another word. I was sorry he had to see all that, all those drinks, on his 15th sobriety birthday of all days, but I felt like it had to be done. I felt like something had to be let out, something needed to be said. And now it had been.